Hello parents. This video is to help us understand some of the basics of adding and subtracting. And my goals and hopes for this video is to help better understand how and why math has changed, to be able to create simple but challenging problems for kids to solve at home. This will be a series of videos, so with each video you'll be learning a new type of problem to give them. And lastly, to understand what problem solving should look like as they approach the math. So, math that previously was taught in a very linear way. We memorized a lot of facts and solved problems in a way that usually went something plus or minus something equals an answer. What the powers that be, the people who study education, discovered was that students came into higher math, such as 5th and 6th grade, and they couldn't do it. Generations of frustrated students, I remember everyone dreading pre-algebra in high school, led to the discovery that students couldn't problem solve. They couldn't break out of this idea of linear thinking, and that problems should be solved in a straight line. And nowhere was this more seen than in higher math, where the ability to critically think around a problem is the key to finding the answer. This is also why writing can be difficult for students, because there's no one straight way to write a story. So let's look at first grade math. In first grade, we start breaking away from this idea that there is one way to solve any word problem and start being able to collaborate and think through word problems, connect multiple math ideas to each problem, and decide on a plan of attack. Basically, we're learning critical thinking. This approach allows students to gain the understanding that not every problem they have in life can be solved in a linear approach. Some problems need to be worked around, over, and through for them to be solved. They also found that students who truly understood problems could explain them. The focus of math or problem solving should be on the process, not the answer. Students can do more because they were taught to do more. A calculator like this one can give you the answer to almost any math problem, but it can't understand it for you. I tell the kids with each problem, even if you already have the answer in your head, toss it out and work on explaining why that is the answer. Mathematicians are not regurgitators of facts. They are seekers of proof that their facts are correct. In other words, I always ask, can you prove it? If not, you still have work to do. Now that we have some understanding of why straight up adding and subtracting is not the main part of math anymore, although math facts are still important, let's look at some of the different types of problems. In this video, we're really going to start with the standard, what I call basic word problem, such as this one. Kim has 3 cookies. Sam gives her 3 more. How many cookies does she have now? Or, Kim has 6 cookies. She gives 3 to Sam. How many are left? The skills in these problems are as follows. First, with any word problem in the first bulletin, you have to ask the question, what kind of math am I doing? At this level, it's just, am I combining, which is adding, or taking away, which is subtracting? But this skill is really essential, as when they get into the higher math in 5th and 6th grade and above, there will be multiple math concepts that they will have to identify within word problems. The second bulletin point is deciding on a strategy of attack. These 3 strategies will all be addressed later in the video, and they are very important to know which ones work for your student. And the last bullet point is to have 4-star proof. Students should be able to draw pictures to show that they understand the problem. They should be able to write numbers within those pictures to check that their picture is correct. This may seem silly, but there's thousands of times in the past few years where kids have thought they drew 9 circles and they actually drew 8, or thought they drew 10 and they drew 12. And double checking by writing numbers is essential. The next is to have an equation that matches the problem. Being able to look back at the problem and see that our equation matches is a very important part. And lastly, having words that support their work. The very last slides will show this 4-star proof, and it's actually a lot simpler than it sounds. Now at this point, I know what you might be thinking. Why ask for so much for a basic, simple problem? My student knew the answer immediately. This is why I explain the history of these decisions. Math may be simple now, but once it is complex, those students who don't have all of these skills will fall behind. I was once one of those students, until college, when I had a professor who taught in this way. Until then, I had failed at math all the time. Once my thought process was switched from being obsessed with the product to being obsessed with the process, I became very successful. I can also tell you, since I started teaching in 6th grade, every student who struggled with higher math was missing these skills. So please be patient and see that the process is so much more important than the answer. On top of this, math always starts with really easy numbers to add or subtract so that they can focus on the proof instead. The numbers will only get more challenging, so if they have the work down and the understanding, they will not be afraid once the numbers get bigger. So going back to that basic problem, let's look at the first strategy. The first strategy is what they learn in kindergarten, and it's called count all. Some students are not ready to trust that that first number 3 is 3 and will always be 3, so they have to count everything. So looking back at our Kim problem, they would draw 3 circles and then 3 more, and then they count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They're counting all the pieces. The hope is that by the end of 1st grade, they move away from the count all strategy and into our next strategy. Count on or back, depending on if you're adding or subtracting. With this strategy, students have developed their understanding that the first number is what it is and doesn't need to be counted. They therefore continue counting on or back from that number. So they start with the number 3, trusting that 3 is 3, and they're able to go 4, 5, 6. If your student is not yet counting on, reteach it after they have done the work, but don't make them do it this way. Students who are not ready for this are not ready. Getting down on them about it will only make math more frustrating and make them more afraid to do it. The last strategy is to use what you know. This strategy especially helps them understand the relationship between adding and subtracting. So they know that 3 plus 3 is 6. A lot of them already know a lot of doubles. So they can use that knowledge to understand that 6 minus 3 is 3. This gets much more prevalent once the numbers get larger, but can be used with smaller numbers. Here's an example of a larger problem. As our math facts to 10, we practice these a lot with a lot of games like 10s Go Fish, Match 10, and as they start knowing, 1 plus 9, 8 plus 2, all of that, they start using them more often in their problems, like in this one. 8 plus 4 equals something. Well, I know that 8 plus 2 is 10, and I know that 2 plus 2 is 4, so 8 plus 2 plus 2 would be 12. So this is kind of the last strategy, the most difficult one that requires an understanding of a lot of math concepts, but our hope is that they'll get there, and many of them have. So when it comes to proof, the most important part, whether they're doing addition or subtraction, they have lots of choices. They can trace their hand and draw their fingers. They can draw pictures, shapes, counters, cubes. They can use a number line, although you'll find that a lot of them think they can draw a number line, and they really can't. So there's lots of ways that they can draw pictures and show their proof. Because subtraction is a little bit harder for some of them to grasp at this age, I've added this picture with a few extra strategies, especially the second one, counting up. If your child is still struggling to count backwards, which some of them are, they can learn that since adding and subtracting are opposites, if you have 6 minus 3, you can start at 3 and count up to 6. And then there's lots of other good suggestions on this slide. All right, here's my 4-star proof. I know it seemed like a lot in the beginning, but really, if you look at it, it's not asking very much. I drew my first 3 circles and counted them to make sure. I drew the next 3 circles and counted them to make sure. I can see that sorry, my brain went away. I added some words that I just pulled right from the problem. A lot of kids get, well, I can't spell that. We'll look back at the problem. All you have to do is copy the words. Which words do you want to use? I chose to use cookies and more to have some words on my paper. As they get more advanced, and some of them are already starting to do this, they even have started writing sentences. I know that Kim now has 6 cookies, which is awesome. Always encourage writing within math because it's fabulous. But as you can see, I have 4 stars. A star for my picture, a star for my numbers, a star for my words, and a star for my equation. This can help them to self-edit their work, and you'll find that the more they prove, the more their answers are correct no matter what kind of math they're doing. From here, be looking for math video 2, in which I will be going through the next type of word problem. I hope that this was helpful, and feel free to get started, especially creating word problems around what they're interested in. If, for example, like Autumn and Cameron, you're really into drawing. Well, I have 5 markers. I got 4 more. How many markers do I have now? If you're really into sports, like so many of the kids in my class, use the sport that they're in to, Kobe Bryant scored 5 points. Then he scored 7 more. How many points did he score? Fill in the blanks, use anything around you to create word problems, and you can show them the 4-star proof to remind them what to do. And here's hoping this helps promote some math at home. And again, be looking for math video 2. It'll probably be a series of 3 or 4, given the different types of word problems we're learning this year. Until next time, happy mathing.